like to call this Rochester-Stockbridge Unified School District meeting to order at 7:34. Is there any adjustments to the agenda? Great. Then I look for a motion to approve the minutes of Monday, May 12th, our regular board meeting, and Tuesday, May 27th, a special board meeting. The minutes are not included in our packet, but were emailed to us.
So move. Second.
Is there any discussion? I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Minutes have been approved. 4, public comment. Do you have any public comment? All right. Board comment. Okay, hearing no board comment. Is anybody ready? Can you do the tax anticipation note, or do we need to wait for?
I think you have to wait for you on that.
Okay, well then
I know she was like making her rounds.
yeah, so what we'll do is we will skip over the tax anticipation note and throughout the agenda, anything that we need somebody for that is not present. We will loop back as soon as they approach the room. And that is good for everybody. Thank you. Okay. So then we will go right on to the reports to the board, the spring academic and social emotional data reports.
So we'll first start, and I don't know how many pages in. This is your academic report. Show. Okay, so we'll first start with the academic report. The front page really kind of describes, just as a reminder, right, what percentile means where. So if a kiddo scores from the 60th percentile or higher, then that means they're meeting the expectations or exceeding the expectations. And like Anda said in our full board meeting, that's higher than the national average, which is usually the 40th percentile.
Oh wow, which is quite a difference.
12. I will share that Track My Progress just on Tuesday came out with new like parent reports that are going to go home Thursday that actually show like where your kiddo falls and then what that means for like the national average of kids, your students' grade level. So you can have that comparison. It's one thing for me to write it, but it actually does a good job visually showing it for the first time, which is not something we've had access to up until this point. I'd say it like highlights this year in mathematics. The number of K through 6 students that were scoring well below decreased by 2 students. We didn't have that many that were scoring well below between our September testing and our May testing window. And then our meeting and exceeding students increased by 2 students. We kind of saw a swing, which works out to be about 2%. In English language arts is where we saw kind of the biggest jumps, where our number of students that were scoring well below expectations decreased by 7 students. And then the student from September to May, and then students that were meeting and exceeding expectations increased by 10 students. So most of our grade level cohorts as a whole made above the expected growth rate for the year. So it was a really strong job. That's kind of the summary of it. If you turn to the next page, this focuses specifically on mathematics. And kind of the celebrations here, if you will, is that 100% of our kindergarten and first grade students are meeting or exceeding the expectations. And then 86 of our kindergarten through 3rd grade students are meeting or exceeding that expectation. So, which is huge. And I would say the number of students, like 67% of our 4th grade students are meeting or exceeding expectations in math, and 33% of them that weren't meeting those expectations, the remainder basically of the group, in that 50th to 59th percentile. So they're extremely close to meeting those expectations. I will say our sixth grade students probably have the biggest struggle this year. And it's specifically with that fractional reasoning that Anda was talking about earlier. And all our upper elementary math teachers are signed up for that ongoing assessment project when class took French. And I will say, with our upper elementary teachers, I took the multiplication or multiplicative thinking course last year. And what this project really focuses on is not just like understanding the background knowledge, but how you teach it and why you teach it the way you do. And I'm making an assumption that most of us were taught memorization tricks to remember all those things, whether it's your multiplication facts, and not understanding like a visual learner how to do that. So it gives a lot of strategies around those implementations and building skills. So that is a huge focal point moving forward for us next year to make sure that we're building that skill set in our students. Questions about math? I think it's a little easier if we could talk about. All right, if you go to the next page, this shows our English language arts, which also talks about our growth since we started tracking this data. And you will see that overall, again, 100% of our kindergarten students are meeting or exceeding expectations in English language arts. And 79% of K through 3 are meeting or exceeding expectations in English language arts, which is a jump from September to May, and it's a jump of approximately 10 students. So we've had a huge growth rate in there. I will say the biggest area within that group, one of the skills that is tested is understanding oral language, which means in the format of state assessments and track my progress, being able to listen to something and understand, is that the correct way for me to speak to a teacher, to speak to my friends, like what is the difference for that? And we've learned that a lot of our students struggle with that like formal communication method. And I do think it's definitely a skill that needs to be assessed, but it's not something that is as common for kids communication wise to hear modeled for them.
Right, makes sense.
Except when they're in school. So we've seen growth in areas of vocabulary. We've seen growth in areas of grammatical understanding, what punctuation goes where, which is key. We've seen growth in comprehension, but now that oral understanding is a huge piece to tackle. When you look at the types of questions that come with it, it's like, well, I'm not sure how we increase exposure to that. Like that'll be our next thing to really look at. There's a specific program that teaches something like that that's just building our how we communicate. And then again, our fourth graders made significant gains, where 67% were meeting or exceeding, and then that 33% fourth grade students were in the 50th to 59th percentile. We're still plenty of room to go in vocabulary, and we will be implementing in 4th through 6th our English language arts education program, and everybody is signed up again to take that training in August. We are going to continue to use direct instruction for any students who need that in 4th through 6th, who need like that double dip, who need an extra support with decoding or fluency. That's what that program truly provides. And then our K through 3 students will continue to use direct instruction as their primary tool. Great. Questions about English language arts?
Well, just having a comment that the two charts that I was really excited about was on page 3 and page 5, expected growth and actual growth for school year by grade reported in scale score. Both mathematics and English language arts in 5 of the 7 grades, the growth was substantially higher than the expected growth, the actual growth. And I mean, this is we're taking the students where they are and how much they move. And if you look at mathematics, is not, we're not 7%, but 5 of the 7 grades substantially above what was expected. And when you look at some of these growths, they're just off the chart. So I think that shows that our teachers and the curriculum are taking these kids where they are and moving them. And that movement has been shown by these two charts as being very dramatic and effective. So I'm very pleased by that. I'm also pleased that you're sticking with direct instruction, because you look at the earlier grades, and those are the grades that have had the direct instruction, and it shows. Thank you.
I want to comment that these numbers look really good. And in terms of the sixth grade, you have to consider that those were the kids that their primary K1 were interrupted by COVID.
Yes.
So, they are making growth, and that's what's important.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there any further questions or comments on this? All right, well then we move on to the social emotional data report.
So, which is on the next page after that academic report, starts with really long narrative, which is exciting. Some of you who've been with us have heard some of it before. A couple of key programs that we use to support our social emotional learning and just our systems of support for students and for staff is we use what's called PBIS, Positive Behavior Intervention and Supports. If you have kiddos in our school, you might hear the term HANDS or all school celebrations or respectful, responsible, ready to learn. Those are a huge focus point at the beginning of the year, especially around like the first 6 weeks and teaching expectations and routines and what that looks like in every environment. And that also goes hand in hand with what's called responsive classroom, which we continue to train folks through as there's any turnover or staff turnover, but we've added it because it creates for teachers this unified approach on how to actually teach routine, how to start our day. We all start our day with what's called morning meeting, which includes a morning message. There's a connection activity so students get to know each other and start to build relationships. The most popular activity is share, because pretty much every kid would share for an hour and a half if you let them. But it does also focus on making sure we're like engaged in academics. We have a positive community, and student teachers and staff have like effective management tools in their box when things aren't necessarily going the right way, and what are strategies we can do. We've also been participated in a 2-day workshop called Managing Misbehavior. So like, how do you go about doing that in an effective way? Those are all universal strategies that we use. So that means every teacher has access to that. Our support staff has also been trained with Clara Martin in what's called de-escalation training. So if a student is escalated, what's a way to do that to help them de-escalate, hopefully without stopping the world for the other students. All those things that kind of summarize. I will say we still have yet to fill our school counselor position. We just reposted. I reached out to UVM today, actually, to just ask them to email out to like all their, sometimes right after graduation, we get a good increase of people looking. We have created some partnerships, like school psychologists. Jay Pappas has joined as a guest presenter working on regulation skills and zones of regulation strategies. We also have a general behavior interventionist that supports several students supported by targeted plans in Rochester, as well as we have a behavior specialist who just kind of helps with any behaviors that arises throughout the day. And we've already started our summer planning of what sort of training we're going to do with those folks come August to really roll out and start off on the right foot, which includes adding more social skills groups for students. And then lastly, we will go to BEST, which is PBIS Institute, the last week of June. And we're going to be focused, we're going to implement what's called Character Strong programming, which provides universal tools, so everybody gets all, right? And some targeted tools and intensive tools that really focuses on adding and building and teaching life and social skills right in that morning meeting time for students. And it's also the idea of like being strong, being kind, and being well. So we'll be working on coordinating that. If you flip to the next page, you'll see that one of our goals, right, is we will realize see a 25% increase in intensive social emotional supports as measured by one-to-one behavior supports. So that would be a one-to-one behavioral interventionist or out of district placements. We currently have no one out of district. Right, and we did see a decrease in students that require one-to-one behavioral support. So we are making gains. I will say what changes that is like one student for us, right? So like,
Right.
just keep in mind that it's great that we've made those changes, but if a student were to have the need, right, we would obviously support that. The next one is who receives targeted supports, and what that can look like is a student who operates with what's called a check-in, check-out plan, where they have very specific goals about what being responsible, and ready to learn looks like. They just need it more tailored than the general expectations. It could be using kind words. It can be I have a safe body, which means my hands are to myself. And from there, we have seen a little bit of an increase of students who need just that additional support, but the bonus that provides for those kiddos is a check-in in the morning with an adult to talk about what their day looks like and what that looks like in different spaces, and then a check-out to see how their day went. And sometimes it also might mean there's additional scheduled breaks for a student because the school day can be long for some of our friends, some of our adult friends too, not just all kiddos. So we have seen a little bit of an increase. That's all data driven, meaning any student who has been documented as not meeting the not meeting expectations through office discipline referrals. We look at that every month in our targeted team to see like if you have 2 or more by October, then we try and make sure that we're like, what's not working for this student? How do we need to adjust?
Constantly reevaluating and readjusting.
Constantly, our targeted team meets every other week to look. So whether it's a student plan that's reviewed, sometimes we pull in school nurse to look at absenteeism or frequent visitors and when they might be visiting.
How can we address that?
Exactly. Some friends always at the same time during literacy or math or PE class, it just depends. And then we do have a handful of students that require a little bit more in that they have a social emotional like intervention plan, which means there could be scheduled breaks. Their days chunked a little differently. It's just one more step above that. And they are typically also supported right now by a general behavioral interventionist. So someone who helps modify that in the moment and monitor that throughout the day. The number of students or the percentage of students who both need the social and emotional intervention plus the academic intervention is also right around 2%. And then students, our population with academic targeted plans, meaning they receive maybe literacy intervention, math intervention, but also maybe supported by an IEP or a 504 is right around 23%. So a little bit of a change, but all that is also data driven based on how students are performing in a variety of avenues. If they're having a hard time, like they just need one more go in the direct instruction lesson. There's that. So all different strategies. Any question about those parts? Yeah.
Do you find the social emotional intervention morning and afternoon check-in? I'm assuming that's to allow the student to have a little more self-awareness.
Right, it's an opportunity, right? Sometimes it's a chart and a kiddo's day is spelled out and it's like, I met the expectation without any reminders. I needed some reminders, or man, I have so many reminders it didn't work.
Yeah.
And it's points to how work to maybe more time with an adult, but it's also time to be like, hey, what happened today?
Yeah.
In math class? And one thing I'll say is some of our kids can't do that in the moment, right? They can't understand why teacher asked them to go use the yellow pass system to like go reset.
Mhm, mhm.
But if you review it at 2:40 and that's their designated time to talk with someone about their whole, how their whole day went,
Yeah,
it's much more successful.
so the morning is more about setting the expectations for the day.
Right.
The afternoon is, it's about where they are of how it is.
Right.
Do you find that there's good feedback from the students in the afternoon, or is it more just like
Depends on
telling
that.
them?
Depends on the age.
Yeah,
Right?
Yeah.
It depends on the processing ability. I will say at the beginning of the year, it is definitely more of a telling and like, well, let's think about it.
Yeah.
I know specifically that this happened. Why would that not be an okay choice? Versus now, for some friends or students just need that. They need that extra time to like process how their day went. Even if they're meeting it every single day, you just had a conversation about it. He was like, please don't take this away from me,
He's
because he just needs that time to be like, yes, my voice level is supposed to be at this level.
yeah,
And if I do that, I get to hear a good job and that I had a good day. So it just depends. I mean,
yeah,
it can be like, at this point in the year, I would say most kiddos who have been supported by this, they can have those conversations. Early on, it takes a little bit, it takes a lot more testing and a lot. Just one more adult too.
yeah, yeah,
I think that's great.
yeah. I think so.
I can, some adults that like.
Yeah, I understand what asking on my
Checking
day
at
was.
the crowd, that's not, I would have done that differently.
Yeah, I could use an hour and a half too.
Right. Great. Is there any more questions for Lindy?
So I just will
Oh,
start
there are,
tomorrow.
okay, I was gonna say we can also come back. to
Yeah.
it. You have a lot
Do
more
you
to
have to
do.
keep rotating?
I have just you and Red left. Okay, hold on. All right. You tell me how much more. Is there?
Maybe 5 minutes. I think the biggest thing we're gonna have to have.
Okay, just walk you. Okay, well,
Yeah.
so if you guys don't mind pivoting to
That's
the,
fine.
the para, then we can, not rush through, Lindy's presentation. So thank you for,
Yeah.
your flexibility. So we're gonna now go to, action item, tax anticipation note. Anyway, Tara.
So as you know, those who have been on the board and for our new board members, the tax anticipation note is on your annual meeting warning each year. There's an article that the voters allow you and give you the authorization to borrow funds while you were waiting for your education spending money to come in and your grant money to come in. In Rochester-Stockbridge situation, we also have tuition money that comes in at different points in the year. So what I have to do is I have to provide a cash flow analysis to the bank that shows these are the expenses going out this month, this is the revenue coming in, and this is how short I am. And so that is then what determines the dollar amount of your tax anticipation note, and that changes each fiscal year. So for this year, the tax anticipation note for Rochester-Stockbridge Unified District is $592,331. So last year, we went out to RFP. We do that every 3 years for our tax anticipation notes, because that's a lot of work to move bank accounts around. So we went last year, it was Community National Bank, who has been our lender for years. And Northfield Savings Bank did also provide an option for us. So this year we will continue with Community National Bank. The TAN lending rate is 3.48%, and the TAN earning rate, so you earn interest on the amount of money that sits in the account that you don't actually have to use, because you don't have to draw down the whole dollar amount from the get-go. Your treasurer has the authority to draw it down if she needs it throughout the cash flow. So you also earn money in addition to paying what you borrowed against. So my first motion would be for the board to approve the Community National Bank for the fiscal year 26 tax anticipation note in the amount of $592,331.
So moved.
Okay, Bill has made that motion and Robert has seconded. Is there any questions or conversation? Great, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
second motion I need you to make is the last paragraph there. The board move to approve the signing of the non-arbitrage and use of proceeds certificate, arbitrage certificate, resolution and note to be executed by your school district treasurer as well as the board clerk.
So move.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Great, so moved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tara.
Thanks, Tara.
You're welcome. Wonderful. Thank you, everybody, for the patience.
The exact
Awesome.
in the minutes for the bank.
Okay, so back to Lydia's.
Yeah, so the next one shows what's called office discipline referrals. So we track these in two different ways, things that are behaviors that staff members manage themselves. Okay, meaning like I redirected this kiddo 3 times, we ended up with 8 seats. As we just were chatting. To things that come my way because it's a major disciplining issue. It can be from hands-on, which is what it typically is. And then I would say it's followed by the 2 biggest things I see.
Yeah,
Students for,
so this does not have those minor referrals.
it does not have
Like the
the staff
teachers.
management. This just has the ones that I manage.
Yep.
So you'll see last year that we had 134 of those. This year we have 93 as of
Great.
the end of May. I would say, in looking back at it, as the school year has worn on, I'm not sure we're as great about report, like, not that the kiddos aren't ending up with me, but in terms of the documentation process. That this, I can think of when I was reviewing all of this, at least 4 situations that were not in there.
Okay.
So because it is dependent on a teacher starting it, because they saw that account or witnessed the account or it was reported to them, and then the kiddo comes my way in the documentation. So I find as we get closer to the end of the year, those are things I have to go back and remind folks to do.
Yeah, don't forget
And then I was
document.
like reading through all the different ones. I was like, there's some people that I go for from different things in my own notes that I'm aware of.
Do you see a link to time of year?
Yeah, so what I would say is anytime as we gear up towards a vacation, especially about a week and a half before any vacation is probably, but you can see it also in, right, like February was a decrease and March was a decrease. But from this year to last year, but April was definitely. So sometimes, usually it's right around vacations.
Yeah, right, a week and a half before, that's pretty funny that.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like the day before, they're itching to go, it's.
And I would say the other time is anytime we have a funky week, right, which not half days, kiddos are used to that, but anytime we start on a Tuesday instead of a Monday.
Right.
Or we have, election day off in the middle of the week, things like that, you will see a swing. Like we are creatures of habit as adults, right? And students are as well. And then to start on a Tuesday and not on a Monday, that's just a different headspace for a kid. It's a different special. It could mean maybe I might have a literacy intervention at a different time. So all those things that's just different for kids. And as you're trying to figure out what that means.
Yeah.
If you flip to the next page, it does kind of give you a breakdown of comparing the last, like visually, okay, right, and a graph of what this looks like from month to month. So anywhere about even March, we had a sharp decrease from last year to this year. And I would also share that a majority of my time around behaviors is kind of one end of the spectrum, like some of our younger friends who just need a little bit more, or 6th graders who it is time for middle school. And they're excited but nervous about middle school, but also tend to test the boundaries way more, which is developmentally appropriate. So we're good. Our most popular days of the week are usually Wednesday, smack in the middle of the week, which is interesting. And the highest referral time is from 1 to 1:30. which is usually coming right out of luncheon, which is probably the most unstructured part of the day for most students. So it's good.
How do they transition?
So we do have what's called like quiet time, right? Interestingly enough, our younger kiddos need it. If they don't have it, it throws a wrench. Our older kiddos are begging to stay outside more or have more of something, but they then have to transition in both campuses from, if you extend their recess, from recess to like a special, and they can't do that transition. They need the time in between. Some kiddos can, but like as a
The
group,
majority.
sometimes it ruins it for the kiddos that can do it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's something that we've had to enforce that has to like stay in place. Because one, they enjoy it, right? Like, as you get older, there's fewer opportunities to just be able to draw.
Yeah.
And sit there, and some of them get to chat a little bit, some of them get to read their own book, like there's a lot of choice in it as well. There's not as many opportunities for that as you get older.
Right.
And then they have a much more, like if I track on days that we extend recess time and go right into our special, I can guarantee you probably live in about 10 to 15 minutes that there's someone that needs something because it's just too much. And if you think about it, like your energy levels up here, and then depending on the special, right, like art class, those that love art, it's great for, but if you came in from recess without any training, it's harder for.
All these things, I mean, you know,
It is,
we're thinking
the
about
value of-
academics and,
Yeah,
and what the kids are learning, but I mean, this is what they're learning here, which with their social, emotional, the controlling their bodies, they're
And I
able
was-
to transition,
Like,
right.
and that's life, right?
And I will say,
It's
this is
amazing.
also a piece, right? If one student this isn't working for, then it not only impacts that one student, it can impact
Oh,
the
yeah.
whole
it
class,
ripples.
right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Not necessarily behavior wise, but it means less access to something for another student. The next thing is about our chronic absenteeism. So we are going to partner, we've been partnering with Gifford Pediatrics, but we're actually gonna bring them to our targeted meetings next year and try and work on some education. We are chronic absenteeism, which is defined as missing 10% of the school year, which is about 17 days or more, has increased. I will say this, if there was the flu, if there was the stomach bug, if there was strep, I think they all went through each building at least twice
Yeah,
this year.
under my house.
It, right, and so that is one area of focus, just like from a technical standpoint, that's a little bit beyond my understanding of like.
The absenteeism isn't, approved or something, like, you know, there's no difference, it's just you're absent, whether you're sick or whether you
Right.
just didn't wanna come to school.
Right.
Okay.
We know who is who, right, for the most part, but I will say.
Excused absence, that's what I'm.
Right, yeah,
Excused
excuse
versus-
or unexcused,
It's
right?
it's all part of this
Yeah.
number, okay.
It's all part of that number, one way or the other. But I will say a majority of both the working our way to chronic absenteeism, which means you miss like 8 to 16 days, which is still almost 2 days a month. To 17 days to chronic absenteeism. And we just had a ton of sickness this year. And I know that we're building immune systems back up and things, but it feels like we need to do more around that to help be on the preventative side. Whether it's something we're not doing with washing door handles done right, whether it's sending more information home to families just about better nutrients. I don't know the answer because it's a little outside my realm, but I will say the level of sickness this year was
More
higher than a lot,
more hand washing,
right, things like that.
yeah.
So we're gonna
Well,
use
good, I'm
that
glad that's
part,
on your radar
Yeah.
to be able to,
not to say there's not other things, but
right.
I've never had the stomach bug go through 3 times in a school
It
year.
was pretty amazing how lice disappeared when COVID hit and you had to wear masks and you had to be 6 feet away.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, like, we didn't run through lice 3 times in a year?
Exactly.
It was amazing.
No, we don't wanna talk about like. Oh, yeah. Oh, man.
That in the stomach, though, they're right up there, and that's the things you just don't eat in your house. I will say that also our number of hazing, harassment, and bullying investigations did decrease. It is, you will see that, since January, it's decreased, but that's just because there has been some substantiation to those, which means that it's been founded. And so, it is an increase from last year, but the number of investigations went down. So it's there. There's no doubt that it's there. You know. So that is something we will also be working on at best, is a little more specific and explicit.
Right, so what this is saying, in June, there was 12 investigations.
Last year.
And only 16% of them were
Were
substantiated.
substantiated.
And so in January, there was only 2, so that the instances went down, but one of those was substantiated. So it is a higher
Okay.
percent.
Right, so the percentage, yeah, but I would say that it's still there. Obviously, I don't believe that it's gone anywhere. And so some of that character strong also has like an anti-bullying piece to it. So you'll be focused in on.
Good.
Any questions with a lot and wonder?
A lot of great work. I mean, thank you for sharing it all with us as well and helping us understand
You're welcome.
aspect of what's happening. Is there any questions, comments for Lindy on the spring academic and the social emotional data report?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Lindy.
Oh, thank you guys.
They're just saying thank you. Okay, go ahead.
I was just curious, I didn't know if there was a certain age group in regards to the hazing and bullying, y'all know any of that? Age group, or is it just?
No, it's pretty well spread out, pretty well spread out. I wish I could say is one end of that. No, great question, but it's pretty spread out.
That's all.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Is there any other questions? Okay, thank you so much, Lindy.
You're welcome.
Community engagement task force update.
We meet again Thursday,
Okay.
and I believe it'll be our last meeting going into, we'll have a break for a little bit. And we, at this point, have all our data collected, there's some pretty clear trends that I think are gonna get shared out with you guys. And it's just about the report and the timing of the report, with the idea that it would be presented. So then in the September retreat, we can start to like really dive in and decide what next steps are.
Great.
So that's the very general gist.
Great, thank you. The facilities task force.
Gosh, where are we?
We have met, there's people, there's been people all week, the past 2 weeks probably in. So we're trying to get some updated quotes around windows. So we have a couple of choices for folks to look at. What was that?
We are,
A couple of quotes, the HVAC system that was not replaced in Stockbridge during our big work is on its last.
in quoting and service.
So getting a quote on what the replacement would be for that. And then there's been lots of people in about being like annual service providers for all these systems and different contracts for that.
Okay. Yes.
Those are the big things that are kind of moving right now.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Is there any questions for the facilities task force? Great. Policy committee. It's the second reading and possible action of policy C21. And F23. So these are the ones that I believe we just approved at the SU level. So it would be C21 is search of students and seizure of property by school personnel. And F23.
Creation of assets.
We have it?
It's towards the front. It's not, they're not in order. It's right after the wellness.
F23, capitalization of
Assets.
policy. Great, so this is our second reading, and we do have the option to take action on these tonight.
What, you want to do it now, Amy, or wait until 9?
No, I'd say we go ahead and expedite this to keep our meeting rolling. So if, second reading and possible action on the revised policies C21 and F23.
Yeah, I'd like to,
If anybody's ready.
yeah, I'd like to so move policy C21, search of students and seizure of property by school personnel, and policy F23, capitalization of assets policy.
Second.
All right, we have a motion made and seconded. Is there any questions? Great, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Great, then this is the first reading of revised policy C9, C20, and C22. So please, I don't know if anybody has any specific questions or concerns or any discussion they want to have on any of them right now. Now, please read through them. Next meeting will be a second reading and possible action of those. So if there is any questions, concerns as you read over them over the course of the month, please reach out to myself or Jamie. Unless there's any other discussion for them right now. Okay. Great. So then, 8.1, board development series. Bill had sent around an email with a article written by Jack Hoffman, missing the mark on education reform. I also thought it was very nice listening to Senator was Clarkson, Allison Clarkson, to get some more understanding as well. But I'll hand it over to Bill.
Yeah, there's a ton of stuff out there about why this is important and that we need to do something about it. I thought this whole issue about education reform, transformation, whatever you want to call it in Vermont, just speaks to an important part of our role that I've been on the board now maybe 4 years or something. We basically spend time on focusing on RSUD and SU and working together very cooperatively and effectively, whether it's on strategic planning, setting goals, board protocols, having retreats, sharing information and ideas. Our role also is to play a role in when we've got major legislation in Montpelier, and I think we're doing it very well. This just reinforces being a board member. We go beyond Rochester, we go beyond Stockbridge, we go beyond sometimes the SU to the whole state, because legislation can affect the whole state, and that includes our SU and our two small communities. And the reason I thought this article was spot on was one of the comments I made to Senator Clarkson, which is we need guardrails so that it just isn't a race to the bottom of who can offer the fewest dollars for education in the name of taxpayer relief. And I'm really concerned that with this current governor, not to sound, I'm a supporter of Governor Scott, but on education, he's just going to shoot low. And as the legislature going to have the information and the backing to provide adequate education funding going on, that's a big question. The other thing is that isn't mentioned much, but you know, I'm a fan of this thing. 2/3 of our taxpayers pay their school tax based on their income. They get a credit the following year, not based on the assessed value of their property. And that allows us to, and paying that way, they pay less. And that allows us to have a quality education that can be affordable because of this income sensitivity. That's being thrown out, and there's some talk about replacing it with, well, we'll give you credit for a certain percentage of the value of your home. And that's just, I'm very concerned about that we're going to really lose this, I think, vital ingredient, which is allowing our taxpayers and our small communities to afford a quality education.
Bill, is that part of this H455 is to remove the income sensitivity on school tax, property tax?
They don't remove it. What they do is they don't continue it.
Uh-huh.
What they are proposing is a certain percentage of credit or something. So say if you have a $250,000 home, assessed home, that they would give you a certain percentage off. So instead of being taxed on the $250,000 home, you might be taxed on the $200,000 home. But that's just a blunt instrument versus income sensitivity. What happens if you lose you get laid off for the year? Or you get downsized, or you're, that's the nice thing about income sensitivity, because it goes right to your income tax and you can justify it by your filing. And so it's something that I think is not going to be as genuinely effective. And it's just going to raise, I think, the temperature of people saying, I can't afford this public education cost. Because they've removed this cushion.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. But I'll wrap up again. I think we're doing well, but if we're not inspired to go home, not tonight, but soon, and write a letter or make a call, let's keep doing that, because it's what we've heard again and again is what we're doing makes a difference up at the State House. And certainly the support of the Alliance is making that huge, huge difference. And our front and center leadership of Jamie Canarney up there making a difference. So this is a lesson we're learning, we're doing, and let's keep it up. Thank you.
Yeah, I am very concerned that, and she mentioned it just slightly tonight, is that they are not really taking any serious look at the healthcare costs, which
No.
With every single budget, we have double-digit increase in health insurance costs. How can anybody just absorb that? And they're not even looking at it from that perspective. They're looking at it from the perspective of the school needs to not have as much expenses. Well,
It's not just that, it's everything. They want the schools to absorb all of it. The
social,
influx
emotional.
of out-of-staters moving in is a problem.
Yep.
That not a direct result, the increase to our educational tax.
right, changes your population. It just doesn't, I mean,
It seems like they're just trying to target education.
I agree, and I think it's a big business. Education is a big business. In any business, the expenses continue to go up. New computers have to be bought, new programs have to be bought. You have to figure out a new income stream. But I'm surprised I haven't heard them talking much about the insurance. I mean, they say it offhandedly as, oh, that's another thing we need to reform. Right.
We'll start there.
That, you know, yeah. Yeah, so I guess our best time is spent to write to our senators
And don't forget that like Rochester, one of your senators is on the House Ed committee.
Yes,
Senator
Hoffman, she just said,
Steve Heffernan,
Steve Hafford, okay, she said that tonight. And
just as like a reminder.
no, I'm not been very
He's
versed
new.
in how the,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like,
he's a
why
newer
aren't they-
senator, but he is
Okay.
in the redistricting where like Addison County picked up. Like they changed the redistricting.
he's part of Windsor County? 'Cause
No, he's Addison County,
we're
but
not,
Rochester falls under him as well,
okay.
I believe, if you look at the list. I know Grandma-
Our senators are the Addison County senators.
Okay, thank you. I thought that was true. for
Okay, yeah.
Rochester.
Thank you.
It's
for
interesting
clarifying
that they see the problem as just education and their remedy is to consolidate and not actually look at all of the leading causes to the increase and trying to address all of them or coming up with a plan for all of them. That they're just picking one
Right.
facet and think that that's gonna resolve it.
Yeah, I know. Okay. All right, well, thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Yes. Go ahead, Bill. No.
All set.
Okay, great. Okay, great. Do we have any new hires or resignations?
Yep, we'd like to welcome Brendan Hurley, who will be our 4-5-6 English language arts teacher in Stockbridge. Next year, he comes to us from the Waterbury area. He's taught upper elementary before. So folks are clear, Heather Hendershot is moving to librarian in both buildings and literacy intervention in Rochester. So there's like a little bit of a shift that happened that created this opening. And we are continuing through the interview process for our other open positions, which just leaves upper elementary. 4-5-6 math and science in Stockbridge. And 4-5-6 English language arts in Rochester, as well as the guidance position. Know anyone? Have to meet with them and talk through just even what it looks like. Or they meet for the
Okay. Great, thank you very much. Is there any public comment? Okay. Having none, I'd like to make a motion to enter executive session for a student matter, inviting our administration, Lindy, and
Annette Rhodes, your Director of Special Services.
okay, Annette Rhodes, and Jamie Canarney, and parents of student. Okay. That's my motion. Does anybody second it?
Second.
Great, all those in favor?
The RSUD board is out of executive session. After extensive discussion, the board definitely wants to offer you their sincere apology for the situation. We have directed the superintendent to meet with you to continue to address these concerns and to create a plan moving forward. And he is going to report back to us in our August meeting for what the plan is and the results are, and with possible options to look within.
We're switching back to the, yeah.
I think that room has been closed.
Okay,
Sorry.
it's okay, we got it recorded, we're all set, you're good. You know what I said.
The board knows what.
Um,
Amy just read the statement to the board members. Sorry, you were muted. Can they still not hear us?
they look frozen.
We're here.
They're just very slow.
You want to
Could you
read that
hear-
again?
It is what I said before. Do you request I read it again? Okay.
Please.
Okay, so the board, after extensive discussion and executive session offers the family our sincere apology for the situation that has happened. We've directed the superintendent to meet with the family to continue to address these concerns and to come up with a plan. To report back to us in August as to what that plan is going to include and how we're going to go forward with this. And one of the possible options is to look within the RSU boundary for other placement that seems fitting. Thank you. Okay, our next meeting date is in August.
August 5th.
August 5th, Wagon Wheel meeting at the Royalton campus. So we do not have a July meeting. That is, we give our SU a month off so they can plan their vacations and such. Is there any future agenda items that we need to add at this time?
Again.
Well, once we, yes, definitely the report from Jamie and for sure. Okay. There's nothing else, then I look for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
So move.
Okay, all in
Second.
favor? Aye,
Aye.
great.